So I'd like to introduce you, as we start here, to my friend. This is Robbie. He travels everywhere with me. And that's him actually walking around on Saturday night, actually. And now Robbie is not just a fun thing to do. I mean, I like robots. Robots are cool, particularly the old ones, the old retro ones. But Robbie, I want to suggest to you, is a symbol of kind of where we've got stuck as an industry. Because we make better things all of the time. Better things which are better than the last thing. And we imagine that by making better things, which is after all what this conference is about, innovation, that we'll win. And I think that's wrong. I also think he's emblematic of a way of thinking about the decision makers that we're trying to influence, whether we're trying to get them to buy our services as vendors, or whether we're trying to influence the organization in which they operate. We imagine they're robots, that they make rational decisions. Of course, procurement would like to pretend that they do, and procurement does everything it can to make us make decisions like that, but it's just not true. I use this word methodological arms race. I actually did a paper at the Market Research Society in the UK about a dozen years ago, and this is one of the phrases I coined in that. It's because I do think that we've focused so much on getting a better research methodology and comparing each other's research methodologies all the time, or use of a technology and the methodology together. We get very excited about it, and we kind of lose track. If you don't like that sort of militaristic imagery, then try this. It's like a produce fair, right? Who's got the biggest pumpkin, or the best pumpkin, or the best tasting, or the best looking, or the one like the best of breed is another way to think about it. Who's got the best of breed of this kind of thing? And we just show them off to each other. We even show them off to our clients. Mr. and Mrs. Client, please look at my wonderful thing that I've made, my methodology, and I think it's unhelpful. Now, look, I'm a big believer in the innovation that we've done in the last 10 years. I think that in the last 10 years, we, more than any other part of the marketing services world, have innovated, have taken advantage of the advances in cognitive science. So we've got new maps of how people do what they do. For those of you who've heard me speak before, you'll know that I'm big on this kind of stuff. So I love the stuff that Daniel Kahneman and the guys do. You know, this idea that human beings don't think very much. Human beings are to thinking as cats are to swimming, he says famously. We can do it if we really have to, but mostly we'll avoid it. Or this stuff, like, you know, we're much more Kirk than Spock. You know, we're much less rational than we pretend we are. We're much less logical, and evidence plays a very small part of our judgments most of the time, and, you know, there we are. And we're more emotional. This, you know, I think the Brain Juicer guys, or now System 1, have done a really good job in operationalizing this kind of insight. So that's all great. New methods, reflecting new technologies. Technology's been really great as well, because technology has allowed us to look really close at things, really, really close at things that we wouldn't otherwise get to see. And the level of granulation of data that we've got to now is amazing. And our ability to put the things together is fantastic. And it's also allowed us to look deeper than we've ever looked before. We like that idea of looking deep. We can't have shallow insights, can we? Something that's generally true and useful, as opposed to something deep and profound. Really deep and profound. And I think that's a lot of the interest in neuroscience has been about this, to be honest. About getting inside the head, going deep, really deep, where people can't get in the way and tell us lies or anything like that, or even dissemble by what they do. Big data is exactly the same thing. It's helping us do these things we want to do with methodology, making a better robot. So when you take your robot, shiny robot, that's a really better robot, and you go and do your creds presentation to your client, and the client goes, interesting, but doesn't buy. What then? Doesn't throw the little hats in the air and go, yeehaw, that's what I wanted to see. My life is now changed. We'll forswear the businesses we've been using and the methodologies, and we'll forever use this new thing. What then? Why is that happening? Well, I think we saw the answer 3 years ago in Amsterdam. For those of you who were at IIeX Amsterdam in 2014, in the spring of 2014, I did a session where I took all the vendors in the room and my business partner, took them into a separate area, and I had all the buyers in the room, insights buyers, and we got them all to write down the answer to one simple question, which is at the heart of innovation practice nowadays, which is what's broken for you in this market? What's broken? What's broken for you in this market? Now, of course, and then we've got stuck these things on the wall, little cards on the wall, and we try and solve some problems. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, here's the difference. Vendors talked about method. They talked about methodology, and they talked about clients who didn't appreciate the brilliance of their method. They talked about clients who didn't appreciate the value that they were creating for them with their methods. What did clients talk about? Help. Help me. Help me and my organization. It's really hard. I no longer have a unique access, if you're an insights person, unique access to information about the consumer. Lots of people have information about that, so that's gone. There's lots of new data sets. Putting them together is a nightmare. My organization's going faster and faster, less resource, less time. What do? More countries, working across borders. As the guy was saying just now from V&G, it's just really hard, right? When you've got a team that is literally based in different cities in the world, working on a project in a fourth place. So what do? So I think part of the answer is thinking again about how people decide in the organizations when you're pitching as a vendor of stuff. And people aren't robots. People mostly don't make decisions that way, either as individuals or as organizations. We know that, for God's sake. We all know this because we actually work out the best way to pitch something to somebody. How do we get this through the organization? What are the barriers going to be? Where's the dangers? What agendas do we need to... This is all people stuff, and it's not robot stuff. So we know this. We just need to bake it into how we pitch. But I also think, if that's about the value prop that the vendors of insights services are developing or need to develop, I think there's also something about the actual value we create. To what extent and how are we shaping the decisions that the organization makes once they've bought our service? And again, I think we need to think a bit more about how those decisions are taken. It's not like the robot or the room full of robots or the network of robots is sitting together calculating, going, right, input of information from this research debrief goes like this, calculate, 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 action B. That's not how it works, is it? It's not how it works. I mean, for those of you who are interested, I've been using this, Robbie. I've been using this map. My last couple of books have used this map that I created with Professors Alex Bentley and Mike O'Brien, which is a very simple map of how people choose. And on this side is independent choice, that side is copying. Informed choice, uninformed choice. But only the top left-hand corner, the northwest, is what the kind of rational choice, the robot choice we're talking about. That's the only bit that is. Much of the time, if you're a vendor, you get asked by the client, so who else is using this? In other words, Southeast. Who else has bought this before? Who endorses this? What experts like this stuff? Have I heard of you? Have I used you before? Those are the kind of decisions that actually, they're kind of factors that really make much more importance than your brilliant new method. So, what do? We think about the debrief, we think about the report. We tend to do this. Put the report, stick it in the library. Put the report, stick it in the library. Put the report, stick it in the library. Do it again and then again and again. And I've been told for many years that the answers are probably in the organization somewhere if we can be bothered to look. Someone's done this project many times before. A report or a debrief, even how persuasive or beautiful a debrief is, it's still only a debrief. What you need to do is think about how things spread through an organization. That seems to me to be key. And some of the learnings from P&G, I think, are very noteworthy at this point. It's not like someone goes, that's the answer, let's throw the switch Igor, and the whole organization goes that way. Even when you get a high-level strategic decision, you need to work it through implementation, and it's really hard. And if your research is going to have any value, it has to work all the way through that chain of decision-making, not just at the top level. Here's how it might do. This is just an ad from the UK, which I kind of like, think it's kind of cute. This is the kind of thing you have to do with the product of your insights work. It has to go around the organization. Let's go around the organization. Goes around the organization. In the past, when I was a junior, I was told, make that killer slide is the one that people want to share. That's just the start of it. Here's how I do debriefs nowadays. You remember these from when you were kids, right? So on a piece of card, you can cut it out and make a thing out of it. This is an info object. It's a debrief. You send to people, and they make it, and it sits on their desk. It's not the answer, because now you know about it, you can do that too. and then it'll get overused and it'll be boring, but we have to think about things like that. Here's one I did for a client organisation of mine who were doing stuff about, you can tell from the visuals, about horse racing and TV coverage. And we did this literally on the train back from the debrief workshop to implement this stuff with them. So it's just a simple thing, and it was then literally in their inboxes before they got home. So it's a relatively easy thing to do. Here's another thing, and this is a bit like what the great Grant McCracken was telling us about this morning with his big board of cultural stuff. I was asked by a client recently, a B2B client, saying, we need to understand for our innovation process the emerging business models in financial services around the world. It's a straightforward piece of desk research, right? So what are the ones that are emerging around the world? What ones have you seen? That's an easy thing to do. And you can deliver the report and stick it in the wall, and nobody will look at it. You can send it around to everyone, and few of them will open it, but none of them will use it more than once. So instead, we took the spreadsheet and turned it into a reusable tool. And it's just the start, because you can build it out, just in the same way that you guys are building out stuff at P&G. This is a different kind of debrief. It's not a thing, it's a tool. It's a tool for the organization to use. And that's, I think, one of the use thing is really important here. So another organization says, how do we get our people to think a bit more about the future when they're doing next year's strat planning? So you could interpret that as, tell us what the future's going to be like for our organization. That's the easy way to do it, right? So you go away and you go, this is what the future's going to be like, and it's all going to be purple, or it's all going to be mobile, or it's all going to be whatever you want. That's what you normally do when you predict the future. You go, something that's so vague that no one can ever pick you up on it again. But this was different. We did a lot of desk research, did all this stuff about what there's different things that could be changing in different ways, and created an experience, which is literally a game of cards, to make the organization, the senior leaders of the organization, think through what different things could happen. It's like a scenario generation engine. And then do it again and again and again, arching each time. They spent as much time asking the question, what do we do about this? As opposed to, what's the answer? What's the scenario? What do we do about it? And I think that's the kind of thing that I think begins to frame a different future for us as innovators in this space, which is much less about the information that we collect, the interpretation we make of it, and the way we transmit it to people, and much more about how they use it to make their decisions, how their organization benefits and utilize this stuff. I've been, I don't know really, accidentally doing this stuff for some time, and for those of you who saw me a couple of years ago, I was talking about some cards. Yes, I think it was 2 years ago. Some cards that I'd created, which were an archive of strategies that reflect that map that I've shown you. They are available at my lovely website, herdhq.com. The book is outside as well. But here's the bottom line. Let's make our work useful to an organization rather than make it just right. And let's have rather less of Robbie and focus on Robbie, and rather more on what our organizations, our clients need. Thank you.